Good morning, everyone. This is your pal Sully with your wake up call. While a lot of you were asleep, some very interesting things were happening in Major League Baseball, including the fact that the manager of the year in the National League might already be crowned. This is Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. As you can tell from my lower third, if you watch me on YouTube, you can please call me Sully. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. My Twitter handle is Sully Baseball. My Instagram handle is Sully Baseball Podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listeners. We're available on all your free podcasting catchers. This show is being dropped on today, which is the 7th day of June, 2022. Lots of interesting things were happening in the world of baseball where you were asleep. Let's get on with the first bit of news. In fact, what I'm just going to do is just kind of review quickly some of the things that happened in baseball on Monday, which was a relatively light schedule. But you know what? All things considered, it was an interesting schedule. Hunter Green threw technically a complete game because it was a 7-inning game that was shortened by rain, and he pitched all 7 innings of that shutout, and therefore he's going to get credit with a complete game victory. That was a victory for the Cincinnati Reds over the Arizona Diamondbacks, 7-0. The interesting thing about that, Madison Bumgarner did not pitch particularly well for the Diamondbacks in that scenario. I wonder if Madison Bumgarner is going to be a top pitcher on the trade market. It's a distinct possibility. Anyway, the Boston Red Sox went out to Anaheim, right down the street from where I'm sitting right now. Michael Wacha took the mound. Noah Syndergaard also took the mound. So this was a great matchup if you had a time machine and went back to around 2013. Now, Wacha and Syndergaard both pitched like aces, but Wacha took it a step further. The final there was 1-0. We'll get into the Angels in a second, but Wacha went the distance. And good for Alex Cora for saying, hey, we've been having some bullpen issues, but our starting pitching has been pretty good. So here's a novel idea. When the starting pitcher hasn't thrown a whole lot of pitches, even though it's a 1-0 game and a bloop here and a bloop there could have been the difference, Wacha finished a complete game 1-0 shutout. Yes, you're allowed to do that. Ross Stripling pitched the first 5 innings of a shutout, and the Blue Jays bullpen went the rest of the way. 8-0 was the final there. Now, the interesting thing about that matchup is the fact that the Blue Jays are on a run of teams, and we talked about this in a previous episode, where they're going to be playing teams that they're supposed to beat. They've got several series coming up before the big clash with the New York Yankees in a week and a half or so. But it's critical that the Blue Jays win these games right now. Don't drop any dumb games. And they just took care of business. Boom, 8-0, the final. Speaking about taking care of a little bit of business, the Mariners, if they want to get back into this at all, they're going to have to win some of these head-to-head games with the Houston Astros. Now, Robbie Ray didn't have his best game, but neither did Christian Javier. Jose Altuve was great, and tempers were high. Bench clearing brawl after Ty France got hit, but a super tight game. It was 5-4 going into the ninth inning, and Julio Rodriguez, the superstar prospect of the Mariners, who was trying to make his case on the Major League roster, hit a home run to give the Mariners a little bit of wiggle room, and it gave them a 7-4 victory. There was another game which was between the Rangers and the Guardians that was rained out. They're going to be playing a doubleheader on Tuesday. And then there was a spectacular game between the Mets and the Padres. And again, there were some novel things. We get into some of the more, a couple of a little bit of the minutia of the Mets Padres game in the second segment of today's podcast. The final there was 11-5. It was a hell of a lot closer than that final score would indicate, and a hell of a lot more exciting than that final score would indicate. There was an interesting, obviously, the main story of what happened in that game was Eduardo Escobar. Eduardo Escobar hit for the cycle in his game for the Mets. He drove in 6 runs, and the Mets wound up winning that game against the San Diego Padres 11-5. The big stars we mentioned, Escobar and Green and Rodriguez and Michael Wacha, all were huge stars. There were some players who performed well on the losing side. I mentioned Jose Altuve went 3 for 5 with a home run. Noah Syndergaard was really good over 6 innings. Steven Wilson in that game between the Padres and the Mets came out and pitched 3 shutout innings out of the bullpen after Blake Snell did not pitch particularly well. And Jurickson Profar in that same game between the Padres and the Mets, he went 3 for 4 with a double. And Luke Voit hit a big 3-run home run. And it was a weird 3-run home run because they had to review it. The way the fence was in left center field at Petco Park, the ball looked like it bounced and maybe remained fair, but where you saw where it landed, it took about 78 review cameras to figure out where it landed, and it did land beyond the wall to be a home run. At one point, it looked like it may have been a double. Let's make it easy. I love quirks. I love stadiums that aren't symmetrical. I love all that stuff, but here's the deal. It's got to be really clear when it's a home run. So, of all your little quirks and mannerisms, okay, let's eliminate anything that makes you say, wait, did it cross that line? Did it go across here? Clear the fence, home run. All right, can we make that step 1 in our ballparks? Could we do that? Can we do that, please? Can we make that one little fix, one little thing that we do to make that adjustment? Can we tinker with our stadiums, kind of like you tinker with the engine when you go to rockauto.com. Now, with the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions and wait for the person behind the counter to order the parts in their computer when you have the access to Rock Auto in your home and in your pocket? You can save money and time when using Rock Auto. It's a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for 20 years. They have everything you need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even a new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to help find the solutions to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now, see all the parts available for your car, truck, and write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box so they know that we sent you? Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts you'll ever need. All right, rockauto.com. Hey, we here at Locked On MLB are going to need a little bit of help. We're doing a listener survey, and we can learn more about what listeners like you want to have on your favorite Locked On podcasts and make them even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On podcasts. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everybody that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey, and thank you for your help. All right, let's talk about this for a second right now. The Mets pushed all their chips in the center of the table for this year. They made some big moves. Escobar was a move they made. Marte was a move that they made. Bassett was a move that they made. And of course, signing Showalter to be the manager was a big move that they made. But let's face it, the entire hope for the New York Metropolitans to be champions this year and to get off the schneid, finally win that championship that they've been chasing since 1986, that they desperately want to put into Citi Field, make their bid to be the team of the city. Although the way the Yankees are playing, we might be heading towards a Subway Series. And the main strategy they had for that goal was they had Jacob deGrom, who, when healthy, is the best pitcher on the planet, and Max Scherzer, who is probably the best pitcher on the planet. And they paid Max Scherzer just an unbelievable gobs, 35 something million tomatoes per season. That huge annual value on his contract was there because they said, look, we're just trying to win right now. We're going to spend the money. We don't care what it takes. And to have that 1-2 punch of Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom was the key. Now, on May 18th, Max Scherzer won that game against the St. Louis Cardinals, but he went on the injured list. And I am currently tied with Jacob deGrom for innings pitched in the 2022 season. And with that in mind, I know, at least for the Met fans, the many, many Met fans that I know, they looked up and gave a collective gulp. It was fun, but they got to mid-May, and neither Scherzer nor deGrom were on the team. And deGrom's injuries, which are, he's almost there, but he's still not here. And those injuries have been nagging him for the last couple of seasons. And Scherzer's not a spring chicken anymore. And when you have someone in their late 30s taking themselves out of the mound, one of the most fierce competitors in baseball, taking himself off the mound to say, I don't got it, I'm hurt, I got to go. Yeah, you think maybe that's it. Maybe that is it for the squad. Well, let me tell you something, folks. Since that day that Scherzer took himself off the mound, the Mets have played 18 games, and they have won 13 of them. 13 out of 18 wins, with 0 starts from Scherzer and 0 starts from deGrom. And keep in mind, they are not exactly playing tomato cans right now. One of the reasons why there was a collective gulp from Met fans across the country when this happened, and they, especially a year after being in first place for most of the season, only to not only collapse at the last third of the season, but to find themselves in a position where they were sub 500. When Scherzer got injured, they were looking at a gauntlet. Now they're in the middle of playing St. Louis, a playoff team. All right, then they were going to go to Colorado, which are not exactly a playoff team, but Coors Field is impossible to play in. Then they had to go to San Francisco, one of the toughest teams in baseball. Then they had to go to Philadelphia, which they were slumping at the time. Or no, I'm sorry, Philadelphia came to New York, where they were slumping at the time. But again, it's a team with Bryce Harper. It's a team with Aaron Nola. It's a team with Zach Wheeler. And then they had to play Washington. Okay, Washington's not great. But then they had to go to this road trip from hell, which included facing the Dodgers, the best team in baseball, and the Padres, a playoff team. And in that juggernaut, in that gauntlet that they had to go run, they have won 13 out of 18 games with 0 starts from deGrom and 0 starts from Max Scherzer. If you had just said they've gone 500 in that stretch, if they went 9-9, I think everyone on the planet would have looked at that as a tremendous success based upon the injuries they had and the gauntlet of that schedule. But and you take in mind they did lose 2 games in San Francisco and they did lose 2 games in Los Angeles. But they held on. If they swept Philadelphia, they took 2 out of 3 from Colorado. They took the last 2 from St. Louis, and they won 2 games in Los Angeles, and they won tonight's game, knowing they have to just split the 2 in order to win that series against the San Diego Padres. And keep this in mind right now. The Mets have played 105 games. 105 games at this point. Okay? So it's a little more. They've played a little more than well, 1/3 of the season at this point. They have 105 games left. They have 105 games left to play. That's what I can say. They have 105 games left. Sorry, I got a little messed up there for a second. They have played 20. They've played 57 games. That's right. My bad. I'm sorry. Which means if they go 500 the rest of the way, they're a 90-win team. They're a 90-win team if they're mediocre the rest of the way. And they're doing this without DeGrom, and they're doing this without Scherzer. And it's safe to say if either one of them comes back, they'll play better than 500 ball along the way. And they're doing it with hitting, they're doing it with pitching, and they're doing it with Buck Showalter doing some smart things. Did you see what happened in the game? You probably didn't. You were probably asleep. Carrasco was pitching, and Carrasco was looked upon to be maybe what the Mets' number 4 or 5 starter. And he has pitched very well, thank you very much, as for being kind of an afterthought uh, thrown into the mix after the Lindor trade. Now, I don't much care about win-loss record. He's 7-1, but I don't much care for that. I look at the fact that he's been giving them some quality innings and quality starts over his first 11 starts of the game. And there's also been a little bit of taxation that's been happening to the Mets bullpen. So do you see Showalter had Carrasco go the first 5 innings, then the 6th inning, and then he let up a run in the 7th. And instead of automatically reaching and hitting the button and starting the parade of relievers coming in, he let Carrasco finish the 7th. He let him get through that inning. And that gave the Mets a boost, gave the fact that the bullpen came into the 8th inning fresh. And actually, the bullpen wasn't very good in the 8th inning. They let up a 3-run home run to Luke Voigt. So they trusted the starting pitcher to give them that first 7 innings. And then they blew the doors off the dump, especially when Escobar finished the cycle. He hit a big home run in the 6th or 7th inning, then hit an RBI triple that clinched the cycle, but also gave the Mets some wiggle room, which is why that final score 11-5 was misleading, because it was a 7-5 game going into the 9th inning. But Showalter trusting his starting pitcher to get through that 8th, trusting the team to win in situations like this, in my humble opinion, means that even if something happens with the Mets along the way, and you're starting to see some teams are starting to wake up, you're starting to see the Braves are on a winning streak. Do you notice that they've crept above 500, the defending World Series champs? Sleeping Giants right there. But the fact that the Mets are in a situation where even mediocrity to the end of the season will probably put them in the playoffs, and that they face this juggernaut, this gauntlet, this turn to the West Coast where they're playing some of the best teams in baseball and doing it without their 2 secret weapons at the top of the rotation, shows that Buck Showalter is the manager of the year. That Buck Showalter is demonstrating why he was given the car keys for this team. That they didn't panic. That he's pushing the right buttons. That he's pushing his veterans a little bit to say, hey, give me a little more there. Arranging the lineup so that you're getting huge production, that they don't always have to wait for Pete Alonso to get the big hit. They're doing this without their strategy. And right now, I mean, from that moment, it has been nearly a month. In about a week or so, it'll be a month since they lost Scherzer. And they're playing their best baseball. They've leapfrogged the Dodgers as the best team in the National League. It's no longer April. It's no longer May. Yes, there's a lot of baseball to be played right now. But they're doing this. And in so many ways, it's the steady hand of Showalter, who's pushing the right buttons, who's putting together the lineup the correct way, who's going to the bullpen when they need to. He's showing his value. Any other manager would have you would understand if they went into a tailspin because their plan was gone. This was their answer to Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling, or Pedro Martinez and Kurt Schilling with the 2004 Red Sox. This was their bid, and they had it taken away, and they're still playing like champs. If I showed you this stretch of victories, especially against some super talented teams, and I didn't let you look at baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth, and asked you, how do you think Scherzer and DeGrom did in that period of time? You would have thought they were dominating and not sitting in the damn whirlpool, which means Showalter deserves something. I personally think he's the manager of the year so far, and I think it's a runaway. But even if he doesn't get the manager of the year, he deserves something, and I would give him a Built Bar. Guess what? There is a new Built Bar out there. So many great flavors. Welcome caramel brownie. You love brown. Everyone loves brownies, and caramel is fantastic. And you got the new flavor. Caramel brownie has caramel swirled on the top. It's so good, and it's got 17 grams of protein. That's unbelievable. Caramel brownies are available at built.com right now, and you got to act fast because they're a fan favorite. Forget about dessert. These are better than dessert. The macros are unreal. 130 calories, 17 grams of sugar, and only 17 grams of protein, and only 4 grams of sugar. I would replace a regular brownie, and I love brownies, with Built Caramel Brownie in a heartbeat. The best part, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. With Built, you don't have to sacrifice tasty for healthy. You can have both. And Built bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. There are a million reasons that you should try Built bars, but right now, let's just say caramel brownies will rock your world, and that's not an understatement. Built bars, they're tasty. It's the new healthy. Go to built.com to get a box of caramel brownies now. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15, get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. I'm going to be talking with hosts of Locked On Red Sox, Locked On Giants, Locked On Angels over the next couple of days. But let's just try to think of something positive about the Angels right now. I'll tell you something positive about the Angels. This is a bit of a stretch, but they have these new hometown uniforms. The Astros were wearing them today. It said it's Space City or Rocket City or something like that on their chest. That's kind of cool, I guess. The Red Sox one are those weird ones, the blue and yellow ones. The Giants ones I've grown to like a little bit with the kind of the pale orange G on it. The Miami ones are great. I would get rid of the current Miami Marlins uniforms in a heartbeat and replace them with these. But the Angels unveiled their new uniforms that they'll be wearing for the city uniforms. And they've got the Angels with a little cursive swirl underneath. They're white with a red hat with the white fronts. I think they look great. I think they look fantastic. I think they look so much better than their current uniforms. There's a picture where they show a couple of players. I think it's Trout and Syndergaard and maybe Rendon. I don't know. Forgive me. I don't know them all by heart. I do recognize Trout, though. I think that these uniforms look fantastic. And if I were the Angels, I would wear them because they've got to try something. They are finding all sorts of ways to lose. When they score a ton of run, their bullpens collapse. When their starting pitcher is fantastic, they can't get a big hit. And again, I'll talk about the Red Sox point of view because the Red Sox have turned things around. They are now above 500. If the season started today, they would be a wild card team. I don't want to hear any nonsense about trading Xander Bogaerts and JD Martinez because this is a potential contender. But we'll get into that in a later podcast. I'm going to bring on Lauren Campbell from Locked On Red Sox to talk about that. This Angels team, a day after getting swept in Philadelphia and letting up the grand slam in the 8th, the 3-run home run in the 9th, now they hold the Red Sox to 1 run over 9 innings, and they got shut out in a complete game shutout, no less, from Michael Wacha. And let's look at one other thing with this Angels. I want to just put some things in perspective about this massive collapse that they've had. Now, on May 15th, right around the same time, it was May 18th that Max Scherzer got hurt. On May 15th, the Angels were 11 games over 500. A lot of things have happened since my birthday on May 14th. A lot of things have spun around in baseball. On May 15th, the day after my 50th birthday, the Angels were 11 games over 500. 11. And you can look at that and say, wow, that's 11 games above 500 for a team that not a lot of people were thinking were contending. And you got to think, especially with Trout, especially with Ohtani, especially with some things on the team looking like they were clicking. A lot of us, including your pal Sully, thought, wow, would be something. Maybe the Angels are pretty good. And they were starting to breathe down the neck for the Astros for the American League West. Now, we've all known that they're on a massive losing streak right now. And the loss to Boston tonight made it 12 games, 12 straight games. And it's June 6th. So you do the math. The Angels have not won in June yet. But it's actually worse than that. It's worse than a 12-game losing streak because they've lost 16 out of 19 games and are winless in the month of June. 16 out of 19 games. Do you know how unlikely that is to fall apart that fast? And to find yourself be the elixir for teams that are trying to find their footing. The Phillies were in an absolute free fall when the Angels showed up. Joe Girardi is now on LinkedIn trying to get his job, trying to get a new job at least. In came the Phillies and Vavoom. In came the Angels and Vavoom. It was a 3-game losing streak. The A's were trying to dust themselves off. The Rangers are trying to make themselves a contender at some point. And what the Rangers took 3 games against them between May 16th and May 18th, and then 2 more games between May 24th and 25th. The Toronto Blue Jays swept them in Anaheim. They were at home, a 4-game stretch. And when you take a look at this, yes, there were a couple of blowouts. So they were blown out 10-0 by Philadelphia in one game, and 6-1 by the Yankees in one, 9-1 in another one. Okay, fine. But they also lost 9-7, as we know the other day, 1-0 today, 6-5 against the Blue Jays, 4-3, 4-2. They've been losing close pitchers duels and slugfests. Remember they lost 11-10 to the Toronto Blue Jays. They've lost games where they've scored 7 runs, and they've lost games where they've held the other team to 1 run. Everything is falling apart, and they are going to be playing the Red Sox, who have woken up and, oh, hey, guess who's showing up after that? The Mets, the on-fire Mets. Oh, what's going to happen after that? The Dodgers. Now, they could turn things around and go on a winning streak. Or this could spiral really fast. Not only are they playing badly right now, they have a horrific stretch coming up. And you could very easily see them losing a series to the Dodgers and to the Mets. And they're playing this series with the Red Sox where they've already lost the first one. This could go on a while. This could go on big time. And this is the gut check for the Angels as we are approaching mid-June in a couple of days. You can't have it's early when you've gone past the 1/3 mark of the season and you can't win a game no matter what you do. And you're facing the Red Sox, who are on a major roll, the Mets, who are playing out of their mind, and the Dodgers, who are the consensus pick to win the World Series. This stretch could go on. And if they want to have a year where the only good thing we talk about are the nice new uniforms they have, It's time for the Angels to either start hitting when they got good pitching or start pitching when they've got the good hitting. But as of right now, they can't line it up at all. And this is going to be yet another lost season with these elite players. But this is not going to be a lost season for me to be doing these podcasts. I just had a quick moment. We're going to take a look at who we are going to be seeing on today's games, which are on Tuesday, doubleheader with the Rangers and the Guardians are going on. The Reds and the Diamondbacks will be playing the Nationals and the Marlins. Cubs and Orioles, that's really nothing happening there. Scuball is pitching for the Tigers, and he's putting together an all-star caliber season, as is Quintana with the Pirates. The Cardinals and the Rays, two teams that are on a good stretch, are playing in Tampa Bay. The A's are playing the surging Braves, who are now above 500. The Yankees and the Twins. The Yankees are on fire, and the Twins are currently the leaders in the division. Jameson Taillon is pitching. He's been unbelievably great. Flexen and Verlander, as the Mariners and the Astros are playing another key game right there. Blue Jays got to keep winning if they want to have any hope of getting closer to that division. And Manoah, who's been fantastic, is going for LA. The Dodgers and the White Sox. Some people thought that was going to be a World Series matchup. It was in 1959. White versus Kopech are going in that. The Phillies and the Brewers, an interesting matchup, as the Phillies are going to try to see, are they back, or did they just have the good fortune of facing the Angels? The Brewers are there, and they're trying to hold off the Cardinals, who are surging for the NL Central first place. The Red Sox are throwing Whitlock, who's been fantastic so far. The Angels haven't announced a starter yet. That's a problem. Walker versus Darvish. It's the Mets and the Padres lineup. And the Rocks and the Giants are pitching Carlos Rodon versus Marquez. So, hey, while you were sleeping, some fun things happened in the world of baseball. And one of the things that happened was, well, I did this podcast. So, follow us at Lockdown MLB Pod, same handle for Instagram. And I am your pal Sully, as you can see right there. You can follow me at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Praising Buck Showalter and seeing what's happening with this Angels team that is collapsing in a truly memorable way. This is Locked On MLB for the 7th day of June, 2022. I got to go to bed. You all woke up. I haven't slept yet. And my name is Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.